Hello, friends. Welcome back to another interview here on Love Wrestling. Another one that I'm excited to bring you. I say that every time, but damn it, I'm lucky that I get to talk to great people in pro wrestling. And that's the case again today. A guy that I've gotten to speak to before, and I'm lucky to get the privilege to get to do again here on Love Wrestling. Steve Rivers joining me, the All-American, the former RCW heavyweight champion. Dude, it's great to see you. It's great to see anybody at this particular moment in history, right? But how are you doing, man? How have things been over, I guess, the last 10 months since we last spoke?
Well, they've been up and down, I guess, like everybody else. I mean, things started looking up, when, summertime, when things started opening up and wrestling was back and, got to do regular shows and everything was open, and then kind of all came crashing down, after October, November. So,
yeah,
kind of right back where we started from 10 months ago. So,
yeah. The more things,
no wrestling, no beer. So
the more things change, the more they stay the same. Hey,
exactly.
But as you mentioned, man, you're one of the few individuals, as well as the other individuals who wrestle for Real Canadian Wrestling, that did get the opportunity to step into the ring a little bit in, like you said, that sort of brief upswing, downswing, whichever swing that we had through the summer. What was it like for you, just getting the opportunity to wrestle in, again, just what's been a very weird time in history?
Actually, it was pretty good because RCW, I think, was one of the only promotions in all of Canada that was actually running regular shows. Mm-hmm. So actually being part of one of the only companies that was running was great. So, it was shut down and couldn't run shows and stuff. So it was good. We were doing weekly shows in Calgary and Edmonton, and man, it was great for a while. It was awesome. Yeah. So,
well, and it's got to be cool for you, even just as one of the veterans in the locker room, to get the opportunity to chat with guys like Josh Alexander, who's coming in, and other people who have been in the business for quite a while, which there have been with RCW, but you've seen a lot of turnover in the promotion over the last little bit. It's got to be good to get another grizzled vet in there every so often, right? And especially when they've got the talent of, again, guys like Josh Alexander.
Yeah, I think those guys are happy to be working too. So, they get a chance in Calgary or Edmonton to do a few shows, they're going to take it, man.
Absolutely.
They're having a hard time getting work. So, yeah, it's good. It's good to have people like that. So, absolutely.
Absolutely, man. I mentioned as well off the bat there, an RCW heavyweight champion. Now, that wasn't years ago. That was very recently. That was throughout the pandemic. Number one, I've just got to ask on a personal note, how cool was it for you to be the guy to end what was just a really, really cool run, really, really almost legendary is the word for RCW as far as heavy metals reigns with the championship goes. So maybe just touching on that a little bit, and then just the opportunity to be a champion of a promotion again later on in your career.
Yeah, we kind of gave him the old holy shit, what happened moment when I won the title. Kind of that Undertaker losing the streak moment. Nobody expected me to win nobody expected me to win the belt from heavy metal. He'd been so dominant and at the top of the game and beating everybody that was coming in. So, we thought, what better way to give the crowd something different than have heavy metal chase me for the belt and give them that moment and make it mean something. And it worked. We gave him that holy crap moment. What just happened, right? And awesome. It worked out really well. It was and to still be in, competing at kind of that top level still, this year is my 30th anniversary, 2021. So, to still be, wrestling at the top of the cards like that with a person like heavy metal who works his ass off, it's fantastic, right? So it's good.
Absolutely, man. Now, as I mentioned off the hop in the intro there, you're a guy who has a lot of fans, not only in Alberta, but just all throughout professional wrestling. You've had the opportunity to wrestle in a bunch of different places, and a bunch of different fans have the opportunity to interact with you through your various social media platforms. You sent me a bunch of fan questions that you've received, which is admittedly nice for me, both on the preparation end. It's not like there's a lack of stuff that I want to ask you, but it's always nice to get the fan questions in there, and I want to make sure that we do so. So I'm just going to touch on a couple that you sent me, if that's cool with you. The first one that I'm going to touch on is from Andrew C. He says, when you were in Puerto Rico, was Jose Gonzalez still there?
Yeah, he was actually. I was there in 1997, and I went down there with a local guy here, Mike Lazansky, got me booked. He's passed away now, but he was a really good, he was a good friend of mine. And he warned me before I went. He said, look, Jose Gonzalez, for people who don't know, Jose Gonzalez was the guy who murdered Bruiser Brody in Puerto Rico. And basically he gave me a warning. He's like, before we go, when you're there, just never talk about it. Just never bring it up. Because, kind of, an awkward moment, but he was
a bit of a touchy subject.
Yeah. Was one of the head bookers when I was there. So it was,
okay.
You're sharing the locker room and you're listening to the guy, knowing that, this is the guy who murdered Bruiser Brody, so but he was still there and he was still in the office. He's one of the head bookers. So it was interesting.
Oh man, maybe just take me a little bit through the experience being in Puerto Rico as a whole, because everybody talks about what a mecca of professional wrestling it was, especially back when you were there. What was the experience like overall?
It was a great experience. We were wrestling 5-6 times a week, doing TV tapings twice a week because they had a Saturday show and a Sunday show. So TV tapings, I think, were Tuesday, Wednesdays. You'd wrestle 3-4 times that day, just cool. TV for the, to make enough TV for the weekend. And then you're wrestling the other, 5-6 nights a week all over the island. And everything was fairly close. Your longest drives were maybe only 2 hours away and stuff like that. So you pretty much get all over Puerto Rico and get to see all the little towns. And it was really good.
Vastly different than Canada, hey, where you've got to drive 2 or 3 hours to get to the next show, nonetheless, wherever you want to go in the town, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Hours is your closest shot if you're lucky in Canada.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, at least we're lucky enough to have great professional wrestlers. Puerto Rico does too. But man, we're lucky up here in Canada. And I know we could have a whole entire podcast as far as that goes itself. Another Canadian wrestler that a lot of people do know out there, Teddy Hart, who Chris B asks you about. Is it true that you actually gave him both his first real wrestling match and his name?
There is some truth to that. So, I gave Teddy his first real match outside of like Harry and TJ and the kids that he grew up with. He did some little exhibition matches with those guys, but his first real actual professional wrestling match in an independent promotion was with me in Can-Am on a Can-Am wrestling show. Actually, it was the very first Can-Am wrestling show in Calgary. And Teddy was like 17 at the time, wasn't even old enough to be in the place we were wrestling, which was the Back Alley nightclub, which was a bar. He was legally shouldn't even have been in there. And the booker at the time, Steve Gillespie, part of Can-Am Wrestling, he had him listed as Teddy A on the programs. And Teddy's real name is Teddy Annis. So he didn't want to use Teddy Annis because people thought they'd call him Teddy Anus. So he just had Teddy. So after a week or two, I said, dude, just call him Teddy Hart. Okay, he's a Hart. His mom's Georgia Hart. She's a wonderful woman. He is part of the Hart family. Call him Teddy Hart. This is a no-brainer. So I don't want to take too much credit for giving Teddy that name because I'm sure he would have figured it out or somebody would have figured it out eventually. But I was the one who suggested just call him Teddy Hart. He's a Hart.
I was going to say, it almost sounds like it was more of a flippant suggestion more than like, hey, let's really go to bat for this.
It was so obvious to me that you call him Teddy Hart. Yeah. So they did. They started calling him Teddy Hart, and I remember his dad would come down to the shows because he was still underage, and he was kind of looking after him. And actually, Dad didn't like that too much. He's what's this Teddy Hart? Yeah. He thought about it. He's like, what's this Teddy Hart shit? And I was like, well, too bad. He's a Hart. So,
oddly enough, those tend to stick, in Canada, hey?
Yeah.
Who would have knew?
So yeah, it was my suggestion for him to use the Teddy Hart, but I'm sure he would have figured that out eventually because it was a no-brainer. So
Yeah. Now,
so
continuing on with the Harts, Jason C. wanted to ask, is it true you were there when Bret Hart won his first world title in Saskatoon?
yes, a bunch of us local guys are booked on the shows for Regina and Saskatoon for TV tapings, and remember we were at the taping in Saskatoon, and we were chatting with Davey Boy, and Ric Flair and Bret were off in the corner kind of talking, and Flair, we saw say to Bret, he's like, don't worry about nothing. It's going to be great tonight. So we're talking to Davey. We're like, kind of what's all that all about? And he said, hey, they're putting the belt on Bret tonight. And we're like, oh, wow. Okay. Like we couldn't believe it because the word was Ultimate Warrior was supposed to get a title. Ric Flair was supposed to drop the belt to the Ultimate Warrior. That was the original plans. Everybody knew it. So for them to go with Bret just like that, I get, also obviously Warrior had a falling out and plans changed. So they decided to go with Bret. So once we heard that, we were that was pretty cool. And we all sat out there when the match came, watched him win his first world title in Saskatoon. And you go onto my Instagram page, there's a picture of me and Ric Flair somewhere on there. And that picture's taken right after Ric Flair dropped the title to Bret Hart in the locker room.
So cool.
Yeah.
Man, that's rad.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a cheesy question, admittedly, but when you see something like that, and when you see someone who truly is like from your hometown, from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, winning a world championship in what is still the biggest wrestling promotion in the world today, how much does that mean to you? How much does that make you say, like, yeah, this is something that is actually a tangible, real thing that I can do?
Well, with that, actually, we were just really shocked because we just Bret Hart's name was never in that world title picture at all at that time. So for him to be bumped up at that level, it sure, absolutely, it made us all feel like, geez, you know what, this could happen to anybody. Like it could, it's, everybody could get their chance, back probably 5 years prior to that. No, people would have laughed if you would have said Bret Hart was going to be a world champion one day.
Really?
Absolutely. Because it was a big guy. They wanted the Hulk Hogan's, the 300-pound guys, the Ultimate Warriors. Bret was never even on the radar for a world title run back then, before that. So it was very encouraging for everybody to know that, hey man, we could get a chance at this. So
yeah, that sounds so foreign now because it is a lot of the same sort of critiques and criticisms you hear of professional wrestling now is, well, he's not, like you say, the Hulk Hogan type, the big bulky dude, but to hear that Bret Hart wasn't in that conversation, right, is just, it's such cognitive dissonance. Yeah, he is a smaller guy, but he's Bret fucking Hart.
And I think Bret really showed his worth, winning the Intercontinental titles and having those great matches with like Kurt Hennig and battles with Shawn Michaels, and really showed that, we could run with this guy,
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to let work wise, right? So,
yeah.
You worked
hard. Bang on there.
Yeah.
Bang on, man. Now, this is a bit of a vague question, but Mike M wanted to ask you, and I'm sure there'll be a story behind it. I once heard you mention that you ribbed a guy when on a WWF show, and then some of the roster heard about it and were laughing, trying to figure out who did it. What was the story there, if there is a story there?
Yeah, there's a story. Not too many people know. So it might have been even the Saskatoon trip. I can't remember. Or maybe the Manitoba tapings, but myself, Ken Johnson, and a couple other guys from Calgary, my buddy Dale, Jason Helton, we were booked on the show to do TV again. And we got a ride up to Saskatoon and Regina by one of Kenny Johnson's friend volunteered to give us a ride up there. Mm-hmm. He had days off. He said he'd give us all a ride. So we had a free ride up there. But the whole way, we were talking about ribs and all that, and he was bragging about how he could never get ribbed and nobody could ever get them. And guys don't know. So I was like, oh my God, this motherfucker doesn't know what he's going to get into here. So Calgary back then were notorious for ribbing. One of the best reputation, like from the Bulldogs to the Stampede territory, ribbing was, Calgary guys have a bad reputation for it. And I kind of fit right into that coming into wrestling. I was a practical joker. I love that stuff, man. So he was really just lighting a fire under me when he was saying, "Oh, you guys could never get me. You'll never be able to rid me." So I was like, "Okay, all right, motherfucker."
Your number's up.
Yeah. Got to our hotel, and my buddy Dale was going to be rooming with him. So I asked Dale, I said, "Dale, give me your room key." And he's like, "Why?" I said, "Well," he goes, "What are you going to do?" I said, "You can come with me," because he was pissed off too. So get the room key, and when the guy was out, I snuck in the room and I took a big crap in his bed. Yeah. Then put the sheets back and left. So later that night, he would come in the room and had a little surprise for him, and he flipped his lid. He went absolutely nuts, and he was crying and whining, and Dale said, as soon as you opened the door to the hotel room, you could tell something wasn't right. It just stung. And
you don't say he was a little upset, hey?
So he apparently went down to the front desk, and he was trying to get his own hotel room, and he was screaming and yelling about how one of the wrestlers shit in his bed, and some of the WWF guys were at the front, and they heard it and they started laughing, and they're like trying to figure out who it was, and they're like, "Oh, it's like, it's got to be a Calgary guy. Only a Calgary guy would do that." So I kind of quiet. Dale, we ended up having to we ended up taking all the bedding off that bed because it was Dale couldn't sleep in the room after, and we chucked it out the fire escape.
Again, so you don't say.
so yeah, that's what happened with that one.
Oh man. Well, then this might make the question a little bit easier, because KDH simply asks Calgary or Winnipeg.
Yeah, so I've been hearing that lately. I think Don Callis has kind of started that with who's the greatest city for wrestling in Calgary or Winnipeg. And, that's a tough one because there's so many great wrestlers in both. And, like even currently in Winnipeg, you got such good talent there. Like, with Heavy and AJ Sanchez and Danny Duggan, and man, even like the guys before, like Shitty Cruz and Adam Knight, like, and then
Tyler
Calgary.
Colton, yeah.
So many guys, right? That's, and then Calgary, of course, you got your legends here that all got brought up here and trained in the dungeon. Man, that's a tough one. I can't really say, I don't want to slight any other city, but I got to give Calgary the hometown advantage that I was trained here, and this is the home setting. I mean, I know Jericho likes to claim Winnipeg's the now for the capital of wrestling, but I want to remind Chris, you trained here in Calgary. You didn't train in Winnipeg. Well,
shots fired. And you know what? If I ever have the opportunity to have Jericho answer that on the podcast, so help me God, I'll probably cry. Let's make that happen. We need the official Jericho rebuttal. We've got another question here. Admittedly, it didn't have any name attached to it, but I want to make sure we get to all of them before we close it out. They simply ask, how big of a wrestling fan were you growing up? And did you go to all of the shows in your local area?
Oh man, I was a huge wrestling fan growing up. Stampede Wrestling was absolutely huge, and we'd go down, I wouldn't say every weekend, but at least probably once a month to the local shows here for Stampede Wrestling. And if WWF ever came to town, we would definitely be going to those shows. I was a huge fan. Really impacted my life. I mean, I remember even, getting a gym membership at a pretty young age, like 14, 15. And, me and my buddy Dale, we'd go to Gold's Gym, and all the Stampede wrestlers would be in there. And I know they'd all be working out and together, and, kind of not in the kayfabe era. And they'd see us come in there, and they knew we were marks, and I could tell they'd just get pissed off. They're, oh shit, now we got to leave or split
put on
up
the whole facade. Yeah.
Goddamn marks are here watching this. So I annoyed the shit out of them sometimes when I look back on it. I'm like, oh yeah, I bet you that really got to them, because we'd walk in there like there's those two guys that come to the show every couple of weeks, and it's like so I knew that kind of bugged them, but it was funny because they're trying.
Well, and I was gonna say sorry for when that inevitably happens when I walk into a gym when you guys are there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we do have one more fan question to get in before we start to close it out here on the show. And it's kind of nice. It wraps it up with a nice little bow because it does bring it back to the feud that you did have with heavy metal over the summer here in Alberta. They simply ask, Will V asks, excuse me, to get the name correct. You and heavy metal had the best matches in Alberta wrestling this year. Each one was completely different and each one stole the show. Why did they feel so much bigger than everything else?
Because I didn't let Squig book it. That's why.
Oh man, we should shut it down there. We're not going to get a better quote.
Yeah. Because we made it like going back to the first part of the when we started talking here was we gave him that moment of the holy shit. Gave him that Undertaker moment, right? And the whole premise of heavy metal chasing me for the belt instead of heavy metal just knocking off challengers. Originally, I think Squig wanted us to just do a couple weeks in a row, but I come up with a good plan, come up with a good angle, and talk to heavy metal about it. And he was right on board, and he loved the idea about building up to that big first match. And we gave him a hell of a classic wrestling match. And we gave him that big finish where I won the belt, and it was the holy shit moment.
Yeah.
And took our time to build up to the second match. Instead of just going the next week, we built it up even more. Get those people anticipating that second match. And then we gave them a big street fight brawl all over the Legion and, gave them another finish where they thought heavy metal was going to win the belt back, and we didn't give it to them, right? Then we build it up.
A little bit longer. We build it up. So it accumulated in the cage match in Calgary, which we sold out for our COVID era wrestling. It was a packed house, but you have to tell the story and you have to build it, or else people aren't going to come. Or you got to make it mean something, and that's what we did. We mean something. We built it up instead of just hot shotting it for 2 or 3 weeks in a row or whatever, and then it's done. We dragged it up. We dragged it out from end of July, I think, till end of October, and we told a story each time and just kept building on it. And then we had the big blow off in the cage match, which was a great success, and people loved it. And it was we made it mean something because heavy metal won the belt back in the end. He got his revenge, and that chase meant something. And having one or two matches and heavy metal beats another guy. This time he was chasing the world title. He had something to go for. He had something to prove, and people wanted to see him get that title back, right? So it's a question I've gotten a lot of mixed answers on. Are you the sort of individual who takes more pride in how they win the championship or the circumstances around their winning winning the title? Or are you the sort of individual who takes pride in how they lose their championship and sort of giving the ball to the next individual to run with?
Well, both. You got to be good at doing business, right? You got to know what is the best for business, and the best thing for business, if you have to drop the title, you can't put your ego in it because that will ruin the business and ruin storylines if it's all about ego. You got to do what's best for the storyline and do the right thing. You're ultimately telling a story for the crowd, and it shouldn't be for you or about you. It should be about entertaining the crowd, doing the right thing, putting it on the right people, and doing proper business. And that's what I've always been about. I've never had a problem losing a belt or dropping the belt. I just wanted to make sense, and I wanted to mean something, and I want it to be good for the business. So
awesome, man. Now, this has been sort of a fan question segment, so I'm going to get my own fan question is because, damn it, I'm a fan of Steve Rivers. We talked pretty extensively when we last spoke about your WWF career and the matches you wrestled there. I don't need to dig too much into that because if people want to hear that, they've already got that opportunity. The one that I do have to ask selfishly is the Iron Sheik as cool in person as he seems to be online?
Yeah, he was a really nice guy. He was really cool. Because that was my very first match was against Iron Sheik, and he could tell I was pretty nervous and I was young, and he could tell, but he was really cool with me, and he was very reassuring, and he really kind of kept me at ease. So he was very cool. And then after the match, he said, "Yep, you did great. Good job. A few more years, you're going to be doing this like nothing." And he was very cool, very humble, and he treated me very well.
awesome to hear, man.
Yeah.
Is there maybe one match in particular through your run with the WWF that means a lot to you for a particular reason or one way or another? Because you had the opportunity, you mentioned the Iron Sheik, you got the opportunity to wrestle Razor Ramon and Jacques Rougeau and individuals like that. Was there one that was particularly meaningful, or was it just cool for you, as I'm assuming it would be for a lot of people, to get the opportunity to wrestle for the WWF?
Yeah. Well, I would obviously have to say the first one was probably very meaningful because it was my first match ever.
Yeah.
So that was my first match ever. And it was actually in the WWF with the Iron Sheik, Colonel Mustafa. That was pretty meaningful. That was the kickoff to my whole wrestling career, right? But they were all pretty good. They're all fairly special in their own way. Just for little reasons, like being on the show that Bret Hart won his first world title, or wrestling Razor Ramon when he was first brought in and just getting the shit kicked out of me. Wrestling the Legion of Doom in Edmonton on a Monday Night Raw taping. They're both no longer with us, so some of these things can actually have a little more meaning, and so they're all pretty special. Even shitting in some guy's bed can make shit memorable.
It makes shit memorable in one way or another, right? Well, hopefully we get the opportunity to get to see you wrestle in one way or another here sooner rather than later, whether it's doing something here for Real Canadian Wrestling or one of the other promotions here in Alberta, whether you get the opportunity like Luther did to go and wrestle for All Elite, wherever it may be, man. I can guarantee that I'm excited to watch you wrestle. You're a hell of an individual. You're a hell of a talent, and we are very lucky to have you here in Alberta for professional wrestling fans to get to watch. But there are a lot of fans who watch this show that aren't based in Alberta who maybe don't get the opportunity to watch you wrestle live all that often. So on social media, you're a hell of a follow. As you mentioned, your Instagram is somewhere that you can find some just cool shit in professional wrestling. Where can people keep track of Steve Rivers?
You can follow me on Instagram at Rivers_delivers, or on Facebook, Steve Rivers, the All-American. There's a fan page there, or just Steve Rivers I have a regular page there also. So
absolutely. I would highly recommend it. I'd highly recommend it. As I mentioned, you've got a lot of just cool stuff from what is a cool career, and one that I'm always excited to get up to date with. So we're going to have you back on the show here sooner rather than later, man. But as for this time, thank you once again. It's always appreciated.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate that you have time for an old guy like me to be on.
Anytime at all, man. Anytime that I've got time, that time is yours, my friend. Thank you guys once again as well for tuning into this interview here on Love Wrestling. It's always appreciated when you take the time to find out a little bit more about some of my favorite professional wrestlers, especially when they're from right here in Alberta. Admittedly, you guys know my bias. They're near and dear to my heart, and you've got the opportunity to check some of them out, including Steve Rivers, as he mentioned, with Real Canadian Wrestling, with some of the matches he's got out there online. Stay up to date with the latest and greatest, friends. Keep track of Rivers, keep track of Love Wrestling, and stay tuned for the next interview with me, Spencer Levin.